The rhythmic, metallic hum of a municipal water pump at 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon is the sound of an invisible umbilical cord. You stand in your garden, nozzle in hand, watching the fine mist disappear into the late August heat, and you feel a sense of duty. You think you are irrigating, but in my field logs, which now span 2 decades of soil moisture analysis, I record this as an act of temporary life support. You are pouring a liquid asset onto a biological corpse. Most of that water will never reach the root zone. It will evaporate from the surface, or it will sheet off the compacted hardpan carrying your topsoil into the storm drain. The water company sends you a bill, and you pay it because you have been convinced that water is a commodity you must purchase, rather than a resource you must capture. In my research, I have tracked a stark divergence between 2 types of ground. One is a dead container that requires constant external hydration. The other is a living sponge that manages its own hydrology through a 400-million-year-old biological protocol. The difference is not the amount of rain you receive. The difference is the infrastructure you have allowed the industry to dismantle. Look at the surface of your garden after a heavy storm. If the water sits in gray puddles, or if the soil looks like a slick, dark sheet of plastic, you are witnessing a hydraulic foreclosure. I have measured the infiltration rates of such soils. In a typical suburban plot, treated with synthetic fertilizers and regular tillage, water penetrates at a rate of less than half an inch per hour. In an undisturbed biological system, that rate can exceed 12 inches per hour. This is not a geographical accident. It is the result of a soil that has lost its glomalin, the biological glue produced by mycorrhizal fungi. When you kill the fungi with chemical salts, the soil aggregates collapse. The pores seal shut, the ground becomes hydrophobic. You are now trapped in a cycle where the more you water from the spigot, the thirstier the ground becomes, because the plumbing of the soil has been erased. I remember a specific trial I conducted 5 years ago on a plot of red clay that had been chemically farmed for half a century. It was as hard as low-grade slate. I watched the clouds dump 2 inches of rain in a single afternoon, and within 20 minutes the surface was dry, yet the soil 2 inches down was bone white and brittle. The water had simply refused to enter. This is the irrigation lie. The industry sells you timers, drip lines, and moisture sensors to manage a scarcity that they created by destroying the soil's natural capacity to hold water. They want you focused on the delivery of the water, so you never look at the storage capacity of the dirt, because a soil that stores its own water is a soil that no longer generates a monthly utility invoice. Think about the atmosphere for a moment. On a standard summer day, the air above your head holds thousands of gallons of water in the form of vapor. Indigenous cultures in the driest regions of the world did not survive by digging deeper wells. They survived by building atmospheric condensers. They understood that the earth is a thermal battery. I have spent time documenting the lithic mulch systems of the ancient Negev. By placing high-density stones in a specific geometry around their crops, they exploited the dew point. The stones would cool faster than the air at night, causing moisture to condense on their mineral surfaces and drip directly into the root zone. It was a passive, zero-cost irrigation system that ran on thermodynamics, but you cannot patent a pile of rocks. You cannot charge a service fee for the dew point. So the knowledge was buried, replaced by a system that demands you pump, treat, and pay for every drop. In my clinical observations, the single most destructive force in modern gardening is not the drought, it is the salt load. Every bag of synthetic fertilizer is a delivery system for mineral salts. When those salts accumulate in the soil, they trigger an osmotic shock. The water inside the plant roots is actually drawn out into the saltier soil. Through a process of reverse osmosis, the plant wilts. You see the wilt and you reach for the hose. You think the sun is the enemy, but in reality the chemical fertilizer has made your plant physically incapable of holding onto its own internal moisture. It is a biological shakedown. The more you feed, the more you must water. The more you water, the more the nutrients leach out, requiring you to feed again. The industry has built a treadmill, and your plants are running on it until they collapse. I have found that the exit from this treadmill starts with carbon placement. Not the kind discussed in corporate sustainability reports, but the literal placement of raw, unprocessed Carbon into the soil profile. In my experimental beds, I stopped using finished compost as a primary amendment 3 years ago. Instead, I began using ramial wood chips, freshly ground branches from deciduous trees, still holding their cambium and green bark. When this material is laid 4 inches deep, it does not just mulch the surface. It creates a thermodynamic shield. I placed soil thermometers in bare ground and mulched ground. During a 95-degree heat wave, the bare soil hit 120 degrees, high enough to bake the microbial life to death. The soil under the wood chips stayed at 74 degrees. That temperature difference is the gap between a system that is hemorrhaging water and a system that is accumulating it. Cool soil is a moisture magnet. Hot soil is an evaporator. But the real magic of the sponge happens at the interface where the wood meets. The dirt, white rot fungi begin to dismantle the lignin in the wood. And as they do, they create a substance called humus. Humus is a molecular miracle. It can hold up to 90% of its own weight in water. In my laboratory tests, I have seen soil rich in biological humus retain moisture. For 21 days after a rain event, while a neighboring standard plot went into a permanent wilting point after only 1%. That is the number you need to remember. For every 1% increase in organic matter you build in your soil, you increase its water-holding capacity by 20,000 gallons per acre. That is not a gardening tip. That is a strategic reserve. That is a bank account of hydration. That does not care about the water company's restrictions or the price of fuel. The industry hates the sponge. The sponge is invisible. The sponge is self-repairing. The sponge works while you sleep. They would rather you buy a wetting agent or a hydrogel, synthetic polymers designed to mimic what a healthy fungal network does for free. They sell you a plastic solution to a biological problem. But a hydrogel does not build soil structure. It does not feed the earthworms. It does not connect the plant to the deep mineral stores of the earth. It is a temporary bandage on a severed artery. I want you to visualize a crisis. The power grid fails for 72 hours. During a record heat wave, the municipal pumps stop. The water pressure in your neighborhood drops to 0. Your neighbor watches his garden turn to straw in 2 days. He is out there with a bucket, desperately trying to save a few plants. But he is fighting a war against evaporation that he cannot win. His soil is a dead container. Now, look at your garden. The soil is covered in a thick layer of raw carbon. The fungal networks are deep. The earthworms have open channels that reach 18 inches down. The sponge is holding 10,000 gallons of water in the dark, cool layers of the earth, protected from the sun by your mulch shield. Your plants do not even know the pumps have stopped. They are drinking from the reserve. That is what sovereignty looks like. It is the absence of a crisis. It is the recognition that you have built a system that operates on a different set of rules than the one they sold you. In my years of tracking these resilience protocols, the hardest thing for a person to accept is the simplicity of the cure. We have been trained to believe that serious problems require expensive, high-tech solutions. We want the application. We want the smart controller. We want the complex irrigation manifold. But the highest technology on this planet is a fungal thread and a piece of rotting wood. It has a 400 million year track record of success. It does not require an internet connection. It does not require a battery. It only requires you to stop interrupting it every time you choose to mulch. Instead of till, you are building your sponge every time you choose to plant a cover crop with deep taproots instead of letting the soil sit bare in winter. You are drilling deep injection points for next year's rain. Every time you walk away from the fertilizer aisle and instead source a load of free wood chips, you are opting out of the hydration tax. You are reclaiming your moisture sovereignty. You are becoming invisible to the cash register. The soil has not forgotten how to be a sponge. It has just been compressed and salted into silence. The instructions are still there, in the DNA of every earthworm and the spore of every fungus. They are waiting for the salt to stop. They are waiting for the steel to stop. They are waiting for you to lay down the shield and let the infiltration begin. So tell me honestly, in my ongoing data collection of suburban hydrology, I want to know the baseline. Go outside after your next rain. Dig down 4 inches. Is it a sponge or is it a brick? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see the geography of the hydration crisis. Because the first step to building a reserve is admitting that your current system is designed to leak. The trucks might stop. The pumps might fail. The prices will certainly rise, but the sponge does not care. The sponge just waits for the next drop, captures it, and holds it tight until it is needed. That is the deal. That is the contract with the earth. And it is the only one worth signing.